Time to fight fear with faith. Jody Paar is a survivor who is no longer staying silent. She and her guest will fuel you up so you too can fight fear. Uplifting and inspirational stories that will rock you to your core. We don't tiptoe around the truth. We steamroll it in a bold way. This is your life, and now is the time to start living it. Get ready for the Faith Over Fear podcast with Jody Paar. Now, welcome Jody Paar to inspire you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Faith Over Fear, episode 3. I am so super excited about today and the guest that I have on. Miss Malorie is amazing. This woman is such a beautiful soul. And I met her last year, and we have just been the closest of friends ever since, and like soul sisters, because we both have been through a lot in our lives, but we have both overcome fear with faith. And I'm so excited for y'all to hear her story. So Malorie, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you tell us all about you and how you got to where you are today.
Yes. So thank you, first of all, for having me on your show. It's been so amazing, this whole journey, and just seeing everything that's unfolded for the both of us since last year. And like you said, it was like an instant connection. And so it's just so cool to have women that you align with that are supporting one another on this journey and just seeing all this unfolding happening. And it's just so amazing. So I'm excited to be here with you and your listeners today. So a little bit about me. I have been a professional hair and makeup artist for 13 years, and not your typical behind the chair stylist. I very much got into editorial styling and red carpet and events and New York Fashion Week and just all of the glamorous things, much like you.
Yes, that's right up my alley.
Yes. So I quickly fell in love with weddings and became a bridal hair and makeup expert. I've personally styled over 1,000 weddings, which sounds super crazy, but that's what it is at this point. And so a couple of years ago, I decided to venture out and open my own salon. So I own a beautiful salon in Oklahoma City, and it's just amazing. It's amazing. It's a creative environment. It's just so beautiful, and we've got such a great team. And so that's something that I'm really proud of and was a major goal of mine. And, I think just like anybody, I think that we go through different phases in our lives where we're drawn to new things that just kind of build on top of each other, and as a stylist, I became positioned in my industry as someone who started to mentor other people. And through mentorship and speaking to younger stylists, kind of opened that up and learning to speak to people and really sharing my story on a small scale. Mm-hmm. And when I was doing that on a small scale, I got more comfortable and kind of started having that itch to speak and itch to tell my story to bigger rooms. And through, it was actually 2013, I was Mrs. Oklahoma. And during that year, I really got the opportunity to share. But what was amazing and scary all at the same time was, for the first time being in such a public position, I feared my past coming to the surface and people knowing and feeling like, oh my gosh, pageant people are supposed to be like these squeaky clean images and can't have a history. And I really had so many supportive people around me during that time that just really coached me through it and taught me, if you embrace everything that you are and you own it, no one can use it against you.
That's right.
And so I really learned that year to take my power back through feeling like vulnerability was a negative. Mm-hmm. And I began to use vulnerability as a positive and started kind of speaking to, smaller groups of room, maybe 50-ish people. And it wasn't until this last year that, things really took another big pivot.
Right.
And just really led to tell my story in a big way, and really came out with my history, and which I'm sure we'll get into here in a minute, but really came out with my story in a very honest and vulnerable way. And it was super scary, but I think when you know that God's calling you to something really big,
Right.
you just go all in. Like,
Yes.
that's one of my qualities that I try to just really stand in is obedience and really doing what I know that God is ultimately leading me to do, even though it's big and scary for me.
Right.
And so through telling my story publicly for the first time, I decided that it was time to reach out, to mentor other people, to help other people, to really be that voice for people and really be that strength for people that didn't have strength. And so I just went for it and I reached out and I said, I want to mentor women. I want to help women. And I started hosting my dinners. And at first it was the gathering dinner. And then after that, I got invited to speak to a group of 300 women in Louisiana. And through that, I made a massive connection with a woman that's also just become a soul sister of mine. And now we're hosting monthly women's dinners here in Oklahoma that are called Girl Girl. And now my other dinner series has kind of turned into something bigger. And we're doing a 2-day women's conference.
Wow, that's so awesome. That's
So excited.
amazing.
Yeah.
So I know that all of our listeners and people watching this are like, what is your story? So you got us all excited with the teasers, but now let's get real and raw and let's share your story. And I have to say, the first time I heard it, I was in tears, sitting at a table with you, holding your hand. And it was kind of like, you know, it was just that moment where I'm not alone and somebody else has also been through what I had been through, to a degree. And so therefore, when I saw the Facebook Live you did after that, just completely pulled at my heartstrings. I was so proud of you. So I know all of our listeners are out there and there's some that really need to hear this. So will you please share your story with us?
Yes, I sure will. Gosh, I grew up, you know, I don't think anyone has a perfect family, first of all, but my family dynamic was very interesting. You know, we were in church every Sunday and every Wednesday, but, you know, there's a lot I didn't know until I was older, but although we were in church every Sunday and every Wednesday, you know, my parents had a very rocky marriage. There was lots of affairs. My dad was addicted to Xanax. He has always struggled with a pornography addiction. And my mom was always my rock. She was always my spiritual teacher. And for a long time, I didn't understand why she stayed with him, but there was just this very different dynamic in my family. And so I didn't learn a lot of respect from men or respect of myself because I saw what my mom dealt with. And so I think that we have these behaviors that maybe we're not intending to pick up or learn, but it's our environment, so we're learning them. And I fell into drugs really early. I mean, by 14, I was smoking pot. By 16, I was messing with ecstasy, which just sounds so crazy to me because I have, you know, young children now, you know, 3, 12, and 18, and I can't imagine them doing those things. But we grew up in, I mean, it's considered a ghetto part of the city, you know, where I live, and grew up in a really rocky neighborhood and around really bad things. And so I fell into some, you know, drugs and alcohol really, really early in life. And at 15 years old, you know, I lied to my parents. I told them I was going out with a girlfriend to go skating or something. Who knows what I said, but we went to a party and I got belligerently drunk and stoned and, you know, was doing drugs and ended up being raped that night. And I just remember laying there terrified and feeling worthless and feeling like no one can know about this.
Right.
You know, my dad was, although he had his struggles, he loved his daughters. You know, I have 2 older sisters and a younger brother. And so he was overly protective of us. And so he always made it seem like we were damaged goods if we didn't save ourselves for marriage.
Yep.
Which is kind of twisted knowing what I know about him now. Like, but maybe it was his way of overprotecting us. And so I never told a soul, in fact, until I was 26 years old. I told my sister for the first time. So that was 10 years ago. And didn't tell another soul until I told my husband the year we had our daughter. And I think it was just that emotion of, I need you to protect her. I need you to love her.
Mhm.
And so, growing up, like I finished high school, I was a pretty active teenager, I was in dance and musicals and all of those things. So from the outside looking in, I was a very well-kept girl. I was not the girl that was skipping class or like had terrible grades or anything like that. Like I was a mediocre student, but I was very involved in school. And
Right.
so nobody assumed anything. And I had, it was my senior year of high school that my parents split up for like, I don't know, the 7th time.
Mhm.
And it just takes a toll on you after a while. And so it's kind of like that friend that comes to you for advice, but they keep doing the same thing. And you're like, I'm done. I'm not giving you any more advice. That's how it was with my parents. I'm like, okay, fine. If you guys hate each other, like, I don't want to hear about it anymore. Just separate, And so they did. They separated again. And that summer of my senior year after I graduated high school, I went to go get a cocktail waitressing job and ended up becoming a stripper. And I did that for 8 years. And as you can imagine, I fell into everything that comes along with that life.
Mhm.
The lifestyle, I met a guy when I was 19. He ended up becoming my first husband just after I was 21. I mean, it was a whirlwind of a really dark time. I mean, I literally feel like a different person today.
Of course.
And so going through that, I mean, there was a lot of infidelity, there was a lot of drugs, there was a lot of partying. And it was during that marriage to him that I fell into a full-blown meth addiction.
Mhm.
And it's crazy to think back and even looking in the mirror today, and I know it's by the grace of God because people are like, you did that? Like,
I know, it's crazy. If you guys saw her, and you can go on YouTube, my YouTube channel, to see her, but if you saw her to this day, you would never, ever think that she went through everything she went through. She's a mom. I mean, she's a boss at her salon and everybody that she fixes up. And I think that comes back to the whole saying of, you don't realize that a diamond was once a piece of coal at one point in time, right?
yeah.
And that's how
Oh,
I feel too, definitely. As people look at me now and they see all the fancy, glamorous, and they have no idea the darker side, the coal part that I went through as
right.
well. So I just love the courage that you have in coming forward and saying that this is what I did, and I'm not
Yeah.
proud of it, but so many people can relate to you. And so can you
Yes.
tell us some of how you have experienced that since coming out with your story and being honest and real, how people have come to you that have also been not, vocal about what they went
Yeah.
through. And so,
I think I told you this, Jody. So I literally have the chills all over my body right now because when I chose to do that, it was in a moment like saying courage or courageous is
mhm,
the only way you can put it.
mhm,
Because I mean, it was like literally boiling up inside of me. Like, if I don't get this out, then I really feel like a fraud. Like, I just have to lay it out there. I'm like such the rooter for the underdog and
yeah,
such the
yeah.
person that's like, let me lift this person. And so I know there's so many hurting people out there and people that feel like they're defined by their mistakes or their choices. Like, you're only defined by it if you choose to stay in it.
That's
And I
right.
choose to step out of it and fight for the reality that I wanted and that I deserved. And I saw a glimpse of that. And so, there was a whole lot of years in between because I'll have women that come forward, because I do these monthly dinners and they'll want to share their testimony. And so I have people tell me what their testimony is, but some of them are still in it. They're still kind of playing that victim card and they want to be out of it. But I'm like, it's not your testimony until it's your testimony.
That's right.
It's your reality right now. And you've got to put into action to not make that your reality. And so when I was 23 is when I decided I was going to sober up. Like, I was like that. I had been up for days, like 3-4 days. I was skin and bones. Like, I was 107 pounds. I mean, I'm 150 pounds now. Like, I'm a normal average, healthy
You're what
woman.
now?
150 pounds.
There's no way. No
Well, you gotta
way.
think, so I competed in fitness competitions for 7 years. So I've got quite a bit of muscle on my frame. And so, I mean, people just assume by looks, I guess, that you're one thing. But I mean, if if people see me on social media or whatever, like to compare what I weigh now to 107 pounds, like my ribs were
That's crazy. Like
Yeah.
you looked like a drug addict. I mean,
Yeah, I
you
was
looked
like super, super, super thin. And I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, really. And I wrote a letter to myself that night. And literally the top of the letter says, "This letter is to myself and God. I promise to be better. I want to do better." I talked about my health. I talked about wanting to be financially sound. I talked about wanting to be a great mom one day, prepare my body to be a mother. And so I laid it down that night, and about 3 months later, I found out I was pregnant. And so by the grace of God, I was my firstborn child, and by the grace of God, I was sober when I was pregnant. And so for anyone that's kind of wondering if they heard me say 18-year-old, 12-year-old, 3-year-old, my 18-year-old is not biologically mine. We went through the adoption process when I was married to my ex-husband. And so I've raised him his whole life. So my firstborn is my middle, who is 12. And so it was during that time that I was pregnant that I really had a lot of clarity, because my husband was still on drugs at that time. And I was still trying to fight for what I knew you were supposed to do in a marriage, or what I felt like you were supposed to do. I mean, I thought, gosh, my parents have been through everything, and they've been married 45 years, like, do we just keep forgiving? Do we just, what do we do? And I finally got brave enough, and it was after Grayson's first birthday that I got the courage to leave, and I started over, and I went and got a bartending job at night, and I put myself through cosmetology school. And it was during that time that I really fell in love with doing weddings, because at the time, the licensing, the way it worked in Oklahoma, is that you didn't have to have a license to do makeup or style hair. You have to have a license to do chemical work. And so because I wasn't cutting and coloring in a salon, I started to build a bridal business on the side on the weekends, and would bartend during the week. And so I could be at home with my kids during the day, and just slowly started over. And when I say started over, like, I want you guys to know, I left with what I could fit in a vehicle.
Yeah.
Like, I took nothing. I took my son's crib that I deconstructed and packed up, and my clothes and his clothes. I wanted nothing to remind me of my old life.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally went and got like a $200 mattress, and I rented this tiny duplex and had a mattress on the floor with a TV in my son's crib. Went and got on food stamps, like, talk about humble pie,
Mm-hmm.
Went and got on WIC, like, did everything I could, and really struggled bad to pay bills, to be on my own 2 feet for about 2 years, until I started getting a little bit ahead. So it wasn't quick, it was definitely a journey. And it was in that time, shortly after my divorce, that I ran into one of my childhood best friends, who is now my husband. We've known each other since 3rd grade. So kind of amazing just how God works things out.
Yes.
And he's been a huge support. He's my biggest supporter, my biggest fan, and you'll always see him at my dinners. He helps run sound and the mics, and he's just like my biggest cheerleader. And it's so amazing, because I lost myself for so many years. And because he's known me since 3rd grade, he would tell me, he's like, I want you to be that Malorie that I fell in love with in high school.
Aww.
Before the damage, before the pain, like, where's that girl? And so I really had to work on self-esteem, and I was looking for it in all these different places, because I did a little bit of fitness competitions. Growing up a dancer and being someone who clearly loves the stage and the spotlight, I was just always drawn to things like that.
Right.
So I was looking for it in fitness competitions, and got featured in a couple little fitness magazines, but nothing was fulfilling. It was like, it was all physical stuff that I was seeking. And I just got tired of it. And I'm like, there has to be more substance. And so I really immersed myself in bridal because I loved working with a bride and making her vision for what she wants to be on her wedding day a reality.
Yes.
And so I just fell in love with like the love part of it and the story of someone's love story. And so really immersed myself in all of that, and built a really substantial business. And I've flown all over the country and out of the country, and that's been really amazing. But it keeps building on itself, you know. And now I have this just amazing audience that because I've built up so many amazing relationships within the wedding industry, that now as I'm doing these events, people are coming forward and they're like, hey, I want to help you do floral, and hey, do you need a photo booth, and hey, could I help you do your lighting? And it's just so neat because I've just continued to put good out and serve others and love people in the process of that. Honestly, like, loving on other people has helped me love myself more.
I can totally understand that. And it's so, so, so true. So going back, I want to go back a little bit to when you were a stripper, because after what happened to me, you know, I no longer saw my body as a temple anymore. Like, you're taught that all in church, right? Your body is a temple, save it for that special person. And when that's taken from you, then it's kind of like, okay, fine. Well, it was taken from me. Now I can kind of do what I want to do. So when you were going through that dark part of your life, when you were a stripper, and you were talking about, you know, basically infidelity and things like that, do you feel like that had a part, that played a part in that, and that you were raped and that was something that was taken from you and you did not respect your body or cherish your body like you should have back in those days?
I think so. I think it definitely is an accumulation of different things. And this is a conversation I've had with my mother too, because my mom from early on would talk about, you know, purity, and we had a purity ring, and they did a whole ceremony at church and all of those things, you know. And so it was like very taught in my household.
Right.
But my mom also, she feels so bad too now when we talk about it, because she was more religious back then, and now she's definitely more spiritual. And although I think she meant well, she basically made me think that if you don't save yourself for marriage, you're trash. Like, that's how I felt. And so even though I know that's probably not how she meant it, that's how I took it. Because when I finally did, you know, give up my virginity per se, you know, the first time I chose to do that, I had been with that boy for 2 years, and same thing, he was a virgin too. And so when I chose that, I chose to tell my mom, to share it with her. Like, I wanted to talk to her about it. And she was like, well, I guess you can just give me that purity ring then. And I just wept, and it made me feel rejected. Like, well, now I can't share with her, and now I feel disregarded. And then, of course, you know, 6 months later, this guy breaks up with me, and then I'm crushed. And so I think it was an accumulation of how I was raised in my household, how I saw disrespect take place all the time in my household with that. And then just being in that world of being a stripper, it's like your body is your tool.
Right.
And so it's more like the fun and games that surround it, you know, and it's almost like part of your identity. And maybe it's not for some people, but I know for a lot of the women that I was around, that's what it was. It was just, I don't know, part of the nature of the beast, I guess.
Right.
I just got to a place where I felt so hurt by so many people that I thought, I am never going to allow someone close enough to hurt me or manipulate me again. I'm going to be the master manipulator here.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. So then fast forwarding to when you got back with your husband, your sweetheart from 3rd grade.
Yes.
When you told him about that, he loved you regardless of your past. And that's something that I want to tell all you listeners out there is, don't let someone tell you that your past is a reason for them not to love you, or that you're not good enough because of your past. Because you know what? A person that truly sees your heart and sees who you are, that is the kind of person that you want to be with. A person that degrades you or puts you down for what you have been through is not a person that truly loves you. And
Yeah.
we both have really good men. We're both very blessed.
Very.
Because they loved us regardless of what we had both been through. So there are those Christian men out there, and I love watching Malorie on Instagram and Daddy getting his toenails painted and all kinds of fun stuff like that.
He's
It's
the
so
best.
cute. He's playing Barbies, and so it's just, I want to give hope and out there to those listeners to know that just because that things happen to you in your past that you think that made you ugly or that you're not worthy, you're a beautiful person, and the right person will see that in you.
Yes, you do. I mean, the beautiful thing about this life is that we get to choose.
Mm-hmm.
Every moment you get to choose. If you just made a mistake, choose again.
Right.
You get to choose again. And it is very difficult to break the habit that was once your reality, because don't think there wasn't times that I was down and out and broke that I thought, well, I could just drive down to Dallas to one of the clubs and go make $1,000. Like, that was a habit. I knew that I could go do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was very difficult to retrain myself to do something, to
Right.
add value to, and I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly reading. I have invested probably close to $100,000 now in education for myself through online programs, through books, through mentors, through speaking coaches, a
Right.
speaker university online that I did. Like, there's so many things. And so I don't have a college degree. I do want to say that, because I think that people sometimes allow society to define what they're qualified for.
Mm-hmm.
What God is calling you to do and what he's going to qualify you for, no man can qualify you for.
That's right, girl.
And that is something that I have had to realize that I want to sink in with people. I used to go into these big rooms and I get invited to these like really fancy dinners and red carpet events and things. And I would literally think of what I was going to say to people if they asked me certain questions, because I did not want to feel inferior in a room.
Yes.
And so I allowed myself to feel that way for so long. And I thought, why am I allowing myself to feel inferior for something that wasn't even meant for me?
Right.
I wasn't meant to go to college.
Right.
Like, it was not for me. I learned business by doing business,
Right.
by making mistakes, by failing forward, by saying, oh, well, I'm not going to do that again. Oh, that was a bad investment. That was a bad marketing plan. Let me try this. It's trial and error. And so I've just learned so much along the way. And you just have to break those habits of falling back into the easy decisions that trap you in that reality that you don't want anymore. So you have to begin to take the uncomfortable steps, and you have to begin to educate yourself in new ways, surround yourself with new people. If you are not surrounding yourself with people that are supporting you and inspiring you, you are surrounding yourself with the wrong people.
Yeah, I saw a quote. It actually said, if you are standing in a circle and there's no one in that circle that is supporting you, the faces that you see don't support you, then it's not a circle, it's a cage.
Someone else sent me that the other day, and I was like, that is good stuff.
That is so good. I saw that and I was like, yes, because when you are in that situation and you feel like you're alone, or you feel like, you're trying to explain where you're going to go, and they're just like, well, that doesn't make sense. On paper, that doesn't make sense. How are you going to do that? And you're like, well, I don't care what paper says. I'm telling you, I have a calling on my life. I'm telling you, this is what I am meant to do. And I can just relate to you so much, because having trouble in school and having learning disabilities and being dyslexic and doing things backwards, things that if you look at me on paper, you're like, you're not going to help one person, you're not going to inspire anybody. But then when I started to realize this is who God made me and this is what I'm meant to do, that is when I really could tell that I was starting to help people and change lives, and people were actually feeling the same way I did. They felt inadequate in the world. And so therefore it was like, just be you. Don't try. And I'm the same way, Malorie. I would go into a room or with a bunch of people, and I would feel so like, just, I'm not saying a word, like, I'm not smart
Right.
enough to talk to these people, don't look at me, don't talk, and then I realized, you know what, I just be me. And that's what
Yes.
I want everybody here listening and seeing this to know, is just be you. God
Yes.
made you how you are. He made you unique. He made you special. And if you are a genius or a nerd like my husband, be that too. But just be who you are. And
Yeah, we're all made
we're
unique.
all different. Yeah, we're all unique and
But
different.
I think it is tough. And when you're growing up, because society tells
Oh,
you, graduate high school,
yep,
go to college,
yep,
go get a good job, go have a 401k, have a safety net, do these things, and this will equal success. My husband did that. He did all of those things. He was an amazing student. He graduated top of our class in high school, went on and had a full ride at school, like brilliant guy. And played ball and got the corporate job, climbed the corporate ladder, had the 6 figures, cushy job, private airfare when he was flying for work, like all these things. But also he felt caged. He's
yeah,
like, someone else is determining my worth and I'm done with this. So about a year and a half ago, he left corporate America and we started a real estate investment company as well. And so that's what he does full time now, and he loves it. And he's in a t-shirt and jeans most days, and he calls the shots, and he does the jobs, and it's been incredible. And so society makes so many of us feel like failures
hmm
if
hmm
we don't follow this worker bee path.
yeah,
And sorry, I want to be the mold breaker. Like, I don't want to be the worker bee. I'm not going to let someone else determine my worth when I know what I'm capable
girl,
of.
preach, preach, Mallory, preach. Yes. And I mean, that's what's so good, is like, so many people are miserable in what they're doing, and they're in their living. They're going to the same job every single day, and they hate it, and they hate what they're doing. And if they would simply take a leap of faith into their passion, into what draws you, what fulfills you, because money is not going to fulfill you at the end of the day. What fulfills you and makes your heart happy, And so, just like your
Yes.
husband, he could have this huge income, or he could have this cushiony life, but if he's not at the end of the day being fulfilled in what he
Then
really
what's it all
passion
for?
for, what good is it?
Yep.
Right? And so
Yep.
now he does, in blue jeans and t-shirt, and and building his empire, y'all's empire, and doing exactly what it is he loves to do. And I think that is beautiful, and I love that, because I think people need to know that, like, you don't have to fit in the same box as everybody else. Some of us are meant to break out of that box and make our own lane sometimes. Make your own lane and do your own thing.
Yes.
Absolutely. I love that. Yes. Mallory, is there anything else you want to say to us before we end this? I have enjoyed this so much, and I appreciate you more than words can say. So is there
Me
any
too.
last bit of advice that you want to give?
I just want to encourage people that, that very thing we're talking about, like, realize, are you in a circle or are you in a cage? I think that's
Yeah.
such a good way to put it, because I tell people that are ready to level up in their life, it's so cliche, but it's so true. You are an accumulation of the 5 to 7 people you surround yourself with the
True.
most. You
Right.
truly are. Like,
Yeah.
when I was back in that old lifestyle, I was a reflection of all those girls I was hanging out with.
Right.
And once I started to level up and put myself in the rooms of the people I wanted to be like, I want to be wealthy. I want to be smart. I want to be articulate. So I had to start surrounding myself with those kinds of people. And it's very uncomfortable at first, and it's very challenging. But I tell people all the time, evaluate your circle. And if they are not supporting you, encouraging you, or giving you constructive criticism, it is time to get a new circle. So
Yes.
that is like the one big thing with the women I coach, with the work that I do one-on-one, in groups, anytime. It's like, really evaluate the people that you are allowing to have your energy and what you're pouring into. And if they're not adding to your life, it's time to subtract them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100% on that, because it is who you hang around, and it is like, it's, if you see a group of people, say, smoking, and they're all gossiping in that little smoking circle,
Yeah.
and then you've got this group over here that's like, I don't know, let's say in Starbucks, and they're working and they're brainstorming and they're trying. You have two circles, but you have one that has completely different career goals than the other ones. And
Yes.
I think that, and what everybody needs to know is you can break out of that circle. Like you can
Yeah.
break out of that circle because a lot of times we don't even realize it. I know I wasn't bullied until I was 40 years old, but you don't realize that when you're in that circle and in that environment with that negative heaviness and those people that are doing nothing but pulling you down, that there's a whole life waiting for you. And there is a group of people who want to lift you up. There is actually people out there like Malorie and myself that want to be your cheerleaders, that want to say, yes, you can do this, and yes, keep going. And that's what it's important for you guys to know, is that you don't have to stay in those circles. You don't have to stay with those groups that pull you down. And Malorie is a prime example of, it doesn't matter if that's what you were raised around. Don't use that excuse.
Right.
Don't use that excuse, because you can be whomever you want to be. And
yes.
So tell us real quick, faith over fear, because that is what the podcast is all about.
Yes.
Your biggest fear in life and how faith took the place of that.
Oh, biggest fear. It's not anymore because faith has taken over, but for years it was judgment.
Yeah.
It was the fear of others judging me for past mistakes. And it was the fear that came out of judging myself.
Right.
And so I absolutely had to lean into faith and just know that God shows me grace, so I need to show myself grace. Yes. And if other people don't want to show me grace, that's fine. I don't need the world's approval to step into what I'm called to do. So it was judgment, absolutely, and that is gone in me.
I love that. Well, Malorie, tell everybody listening how they can follow you, how they can connect with you. I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to.
Yeah, so I'm very active on a couple different platforms. My Instagram, I post pretty much daily there, and it's always something just inspirational, true, something that I'm talking about that day, and I'm always talking to uplift people. And my stories are really funny because my daughter's silly and people love them.
Yes, they are.
So that's at Malorie Aveline. And then my Facebook is I'm Malorie Aveline. And same thing there. I post a lot more videos there because the content's a little bit longer. And then my website, which is just www.malorieaveline.com. And I've got different coaching things and speaking, engagements and information on my dinners. If anyone is in the Oklahoma, kind of North Texas area, I have a lot of girls that drive up from Dallas because it's just a 3-hour drive. And I will be launching a 2-day women's conference. I'm hoping I can get you here for that.
Yes, we will definitely work on that. I would love that.
So those dates will be announced hopefully in the next month.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Malorie, thank you so much for being on here. I love you dearly, girl.
Love you.
Keep shining bright.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next time.